Hi, and welcome to the Spooky Hours. My name's David Saunderson. Today I'm joined by my regular host, Rachel Elizabeth, and we're talking to American, a Chicago-based paranormal investigator and very, very long time writer for the Spooky Hours, Rick Hale. Rick has written almost 250 articles about
Wow.
hauntings in the UK and Britain, amongst his own experiences as a very, very long time investigator. Now, we've asked him today because I was talking to him recently and he was saying, now, Rick will go more into what we are talking about, but a number of years ago, he experienced cancer and he needed his leg to be amputated. Now, he'll go into more details about that when we talk, but that's led him to be an amputee. But he's continued as a very, very successful paranormal investigator, and he's developed strong views about the disabled in the paranormal world. And I wanted him to come on and have a chat about that and explain about how we can make paranormal investigation more inclusive, make sure that everyone has a voice and everyone feels like they have a role within the investigations that people do. And I just think it's an and Rick, whether we're talking about the disabled within the paranormal or he's just his own views on it, he's a fabulous person to speak to, so we can learn so much. So here is the Spooky Isles, and here's Rick Hale. So Rachel, Rick, hello.
Hi. It is
So Rick,
really great to be on here. Thank you so much.
that's right. We haven't spoken online for a while. We did an interview a few years ago, but we haven't actually done it as a podcast. Now, first up, I sort of gave a brief thing there, and I had to sort of edge a bit carefully, but I think I told the story essentially was explain how did you end up becoming an amputee?
Well, first off, we talked about this, and I'm sorry for using this term, but it's the only way that I can refer to this person in the shout out. I just wanted to say thank you, Dirty Sanchez, for sticking with me all these years. You're a good friend, and I just thank you for always showing up in everything that I've ever done. So shout out to Dirty Sanchez.
Okay, before you
So
go on, Rick, I want to explain to the good people of the Spooky Isles that Rick said just before we came on, he wanted to do a shout out. Now,
yes,
that's what it is. It's got nothing to do with me and Rachel.
nope.
Rick, that's on you. So now let's go on to the rest.
That is on me. So, yeah. So, what was your question again, David? Sorry.
I was just saying, basically, can you tell us more about why you're an amputee,
Yeah,
and then we could move from there about your whole paranormal experience or your journey in
my
investigating the paranormal.
journey. Right. So, in 2016, I was diagnosed with a rare form of soft tissue cancer called synovial cell sarcoma, and I was actually given 2 to 6 months to live. And they said that your prognosis is not good if you go with just a chemo or a radiation route on the tumor that was growing in my left ankle. They said your prognosis gets a lot better and the chances of survival is a lot better if you have your left leg below the knee amputated. And I honestly didn't even have to think about that. I'm like, look, I want to live. I'm only 42 years old, and take it, please. And that's exactly what we did, or what
Yeah,
I did.
yeah. Now that's quite easy to say, but that must have had an effect on your life. Losing a leg cannot have been
Well,
easy.
hang on one second. Hello. Sorry.
So I think Rick's being
Yeah, sorry about
spoken
that,
to by
guys.
someone else.
Yeah, no, it's my son. He's got to help my wife bring stuff in. So sorry
Okay, all
about
right.
that.
That's all right. But yeah,
Um,
as I say, that can't have been easy, Rick. And what does that mean to your life, losing a leg?
well, it was just a lot of people they see it as being like obviously it's a bad thing, but it really has become what is my new normal and the new normal for my family. Thankfully, I do walk with a prosthetic leg. I'm actually on my third one in the last almost 10 years, and it really does present a lot of different challenges, challenges that I didn't have before. I can't do things like run. So if anything scary or terrifying happens on an investigation, I'm going to have to stand my ground. Or walk away maybe, but definitely not run. So yeah, it definitely does present a lot of different challenges. But one of the things that it doesn't present a challenge for me is I can still participate in investigations. And I think it's really important for people of any kind of disability to understand there is a place for you in the paranormal community. There is a place for you in investigations. Say you are in a wheelchair because you are a paraplegic or you're quadriplegic. You can still be involved listening to evidence, looking at photographs, watching videos. If you are a person who is hearing impaired, you can watch videos, look at photographs. Or if you are blind, sight impaired, your hearing may be much better than. Hi, hun. Your feeling may be much better than what a normal bit may be enhanced, and you're able to pick things out in EVPs. Like I said, thankfully, I walk with a prosthetic limb, so I'm able to do investigations that way.
Have you?
Right.
Feel like you're in a Hollywood movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. What were you going to say, David? Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think Rachel's right. I mean, paranormal investigation isn't an action activity. I mean, it is basically, if you're done properly, you could be sitting there listening, looking, feeling all these things. It doesn't need to be an action activity.
Right, and and with me, I'm very very old school in my approach because when I was coming up in this field, I grew up in this field, and coming up, I had great men and women like Peter Underwood and Florence Cook and Hans Holzer. So it's like these are people that took a very laid back approach. They would rather do the vigil by waiting to see if something would happen. So it's like I've mixed both of them as an investigator. Just kind of like taking a step back, waiting for something to happen. Whereas also I've do very active investigations as well.
What does that mean, though? What's an active investigation as far as you're concerned?
Walking around with equipment, taking measurements, EVPs, that kind of thing.
Have you had like, we're obviously very open here, and we appreciate everyone's talents, and we'd be open to any kind of person being involved in the paranormal investigation. Have you had any barriers put in front of you? Have there been people that have been less nice? I'm trying to find the best word for it.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times where I've tried to join groups. I'm actually a member of Spire Paranormal right now, where I've tried to become a member of other groups, and I will tell them, one, I'm not going to call everything I find a demon, and two, I am a significantly disabled person. I am missing a limb. And I've had people come back and say, I'm sorry, we're not really looking for anybody right now at the moment. So it's like, okay, so was it me not wanting to call everything a demon? Which, that's possible. But it's also possible that they didn't want the liability of having somebody with a disability on their team. And I was even given an opportunity 3 or 4 years ago where I answered a casting call about a television show, and I told him, I'm like, look, I am a disabled person. I am missing a limb, but I walk with a prosthetic leg, and I didn't hear anything else back from them.
I'll be honest with you, Rick, though, and I appreciate what they've just said there, but I know you do piss off a lot of people because you're not prepared to just sit there and say, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir, that was a demon
Right.
from hell, and we're all going to be, sucked into the vortex. That could have a bit of to do with it, though, couldn't it?
No, I'm sure it probably does. I definitely, I take a very humanist approach to the paranormal, not religious, not spiritual, of course, because you're dealing with spiritual matters, but definitely not a religious approach. And because I'm not a religious person, so it's like I'm not going to walk into some place and call every unpleasant spirit a demon, because that's not what it is. That's just somebody that's a personality that's trying to exert some control where they feel they don't have control anymore because they're not there physically.
Interesting point, though. Rachel, you've watched a lot of these sort of, yeah, and I've had lots of conversations with Rick over the years about the American paranormal TV shows, and you watch a lot of live action YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
How do you compare the two between the UK and America when it comes to YouTube investigations?
I tend to find the UK ones will be more dramatic. There has actually been, I think there's only one ghost hunting show that I will watch a lot of now, because they don't use much sort of equipment and they are quite good at debunking their own stuff. So once the video's over, they will kind of go back and say, well, this could have been that, this could have been that. Which you appreciate as a viewer because you don't want to think that you're being fooled or being lied to, or, that they're insulting your intelligence in some way. But the amount of UK ones that I have watched that I've had to stop watching because every single episode there's a demon in the cupboard.
You're saying the UK ones are becoming like that as well now?
Yeah, to the point where you just kind of switch off because you're like, how come you keep finding demons in every like apparent haunted house or asylum or hospital that you've been in? So yeah, but again, it gets views, doesn't it? No one wants to sit and watch a YouTube ghost hunting channel where nothing happens, when actually that's probably more true to the fact that activity's not going to happen all the time.
You've said similar things about some of these TV shows that are very much. I mean, it's a fair enough thing. You think you don't want to watch boring people sitting around a room because it's boring enough to do. Never mind boring enough to watch.
Exactly. I mean, let's face it, in investigations, real investigations, I mean, you could sit there for hours and hours waiting for something to happen or walking around a location for hours and hours. So, of course, nobody's going to want to watch that on television. So let's go and insult people's intelligence by saying that, oh my God, this happened, or it's not a ghost, it's a demon. I mean, a lot of these television shows, YouTube and even YouTube videos, they could turn like this sweet little old lady ghost into, like this old
Ghostbusters, like the woman in Ghostbusters, in the library.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they can turn it into that, and it's just it's like what you said about insulting people's intelligence. And people are smarter than we think, obviously. And a lot of these television shows and YouTube, they kind of gloss over that and fill your mind and full of garbage, and
it becomes a horror film. I think that's what it's becoming. It's becoming less a scientific investigation. Well, you don't even need a spiritual investigation. Becomes that, and they need to turn it into a horror film,
right,
to keep your attention.
Right, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about ratings and how many subs and views that you can get, and I find that there's two things now that are going to get videos subs and viewings, is either say something is a demon or say something is a skinwalker.
What's a skinwalker? I've heard that term, but I don't really know what it means. Tell me about that.
Well, a skinwalker is a mythological being to the Native American tribal people of the southwestern um, United States. And what it is it's a shape-changing witch or, sorcerer or whatever. And they can cause things like storms and disease and bad luck and cause curses. And people have taken this thing that is very, very specific to a very specific area of the United States. And now you have skinwalkers that are operating in, say, Alaska or here in Illinois or up in Maine or in Canada. And it's like, that's not what that is at all. In fact, skinwalkers are so feared by the Navajo and the Apache of the American Southwest, they don't even like talking about it. They won't mention it by name. They won't mention it by its traditional tribal name, because to talk about one is to invite its basically to incur its wrath. And this is one of the things that, YouTubers have taken and like, okay, well, this dog that's acting weird and is actually having a seizure, we'll call it a skinwalker. Or this person is a skinwalker. No, a skinwalker is very specific to very specific people in a very specific area of the United States.
It goes in trends, doesn't it? Because I like the fact that is the first time I've heard that, and I've been doing this Spooky Isles for nearly 15 years, shows that people pick bits of mythology. It's a bit like Krampus. Like Krampus is now the big thing at Christmas, isn't it? But
Krampus, yeah.
literally, for most people in the British Isles and maybe America might be a bit different because they might have had German and Dutch influences, but mostly anyone who was not with an English-speaking world had not heard the word Krampus. But now it's like the biggest thing ever, isn't it? It's like what you put in there. And so now it seems like Skinwalker, you're about to tell me, is that everything's about to become a Skinwalker.
Right. Yeah, with the Krampus thing, I had no idea what Krampus was. I grew up in an Irish-American family. My wife is German and Swiss. So she grew up with that tradition. And the first time she told me, she's like, oh, we're going to have Krampusnacht, or we're going to have this party in the family where, Krampus knocks on the door and gives a person this giant stick. And it's like, what the hell is a Krampus? I've never even heard of it before. But yeah, I think that also happens a lot in the paranormal community and with a lot of these television shows and a lot of these YouTube channels. They take these mythological beings and put them in situations and in videos, and people, they don't, if you're a serious investigator and a serious researcher, you're going to look at these things and be like, oh yeah, that's not a skinwalker. That's, something else entirely. And I do believe that it is becoming a serious problem in the paranormal community.
I think there's other thing. I was thinking there's like I can't pronounce it properly, but it's like Dubuk, which is like an old Jewish thing with a box. I'm not entirely Dabidic, is that how you pronounce it? And
Yeah,
and there's little things that pop in and I know that we're always evolving in the way we work, but it just seems to be, I think almost we're like a sponge now, the paranormal world, for taking in what's been on paranormal TV shows,
right.
and we affect it. Like I know, I don't know how it was back before the 1970s, and if anyone ever used the word stone tape. The idea that, that paranormal energy can be kind of, saved in walls of brick buildings, and
Right.
that the stone tape is like, it's almost a recording of whatever happened beforehand. And now we kind of use it as a thing. And so I'm imagining what life will be like in 15 years' time with more paranormal TV, and someone else has come up with something, and we'll all be talking about skinwalkers or Dybbuk boxes or whatever it might be. Like what, Rachel, you, as I say, you're much more experienced on these YouTube channels than I am. Is there anything that surprises you with that kind of thing that you're constantly learning?
Yeah, it's sort of knowing that these things sometimes go through trends, just kind of like what you're talking about. So there might be one YouTube channel and they might have spotted, say, a shadow figure. So then they will obviously go and tell other paranormal channels, or if you go to this place, there's like the shadow people here. And that'll kind of go on for a while. but then another paranormal channel might be like, oh, actually, we think there's a demon in this one. And then they'll all start talking about demons again. And for me, it gets a bit hard to try and stay as a believer when you're like, well, this just seems like you're going through trends as opposed to actually trying to investigate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I really do. As a person who's been involved in this, I did my first investigation in 1991, and I've been involved in researching and reading up on this since about 1982. And it's definitely gone from being a very old school approach to you're dealing with the consciousness of a human that survived the death of the body, to now you're dealing more with things like demons or skinwalkers or whatever, and it definitely trends over time. So yeah, I agree with you on that, Rachel.
I like also point out, have you been investigating since you're about 6 years old, Rick?
No, I've been investigating since I was 17.
Okay, because I think, did you say 1981 or did you say something a bit later than?
Well, no, 1982 is when I first became interested.
Okay, that's fine. So you weren't doing investigations when you were at primary school. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if you were, though.
No. No, I got interested in this. My grandparents lived in a town called Franklin Park, Illinois. It's a bigger town, and it's just northwest of Chicago. And I witnessed and interacted with an apparition in their home. And that set me on this path of like, what did I see? Like, I wasn't afraid of her. She was very kind, a very kindly old ghost lady. And it set me on that path of wanting to know more of what it is that I had witnessed. And but things were very much different back then. You couldn't just walk into a library or walk into a bookstore and find hundreds of books on the subject. So, having like the Chicago Public Library, and where I grew up in the town of Round Lake Beach, having that public library, there was very few books, but the books that were there were books by like Hans Holzer. The Ghost Hunter was one of the first books that I had taken out of the library. And another book was The Gazetteer of British Ghosts by Peter Underwood. And so, that kind of gave me a foundation of learning. So, and I always refer to those two gentlemen as the greatest teachers I never knew.
Yeah. I think we all agree with that they're the kind of same books that we've all read. Now, it's interesting that you obviously came into this paranormal thing that we do, kind of the same way we probably all did it. As children, we read books, so we got more interested as we got older. You've went through a journey where you've said yourself you were basically given a diagnosis where you might have had 2 to 6 months to live. How did that affect the way that you see the paranormal? Was there a change? Because I imagine you couldn't have been the same man you were before than you are now.
I get asked that question a lot when people that know my interests and know what it is that I went through. And it was nice knowing that the things that I had seen over the years prior to that, it helped me know that a piece of me will go on. That even though I may not be here physically with my family, I could still be there in a spiritual sense. And so it's like all the experiences that I've had over the years gave me that, I don't want to say faith because that's such a religious thing to say, but it gave me the hope that I will, that, like I said, that a piece of me will remain.
Yeah, I suppose it's comfort as well, isn't it? It's feeling safe, and you're more than just what you are when you're on Earth.
Right. It was very comforting. Don't get me wrong. Of course, I went through periods of like, what does it all mean? Why is this happening to me? But there's words that I never, ever said when I was going through it all. I never said, this isn't fair. Never said that, because I like to think that I was a stronger person than that. I knew that I was going to survive. I knew that I was going to live. I knew that I was going to continue with my family, and I knew that I was going to be able to continue with all the things that I love.
Yeah. And you did. It's not stopped you from doing investigation. I mean, other things you
Mm-mm.
love, but we're talking about paranormal investigation at the moment. But
Right.
you've been able to continue on doing that, and that's kind of message I think you wanted to say today was that any kind of physical disability is not, does not prevent you from participating in this
Correct.
thing that we all loved. You
Exactly.
know, have you
And
seen other people? Because I'll be honest with you, Rick, you've obviously got a disability, and losing a leg is a disability. But when you're sitting down, you're 100%. You're better than all of us, really, as far as I'm concerned. So you've
thanks.
got no, I mean, there's other things, but that's beside the point. We can't help that you're American, but the
Yeah, no, it can't all be perfect.
but besides that, there would be other people that have, I would say, much more significant uh, disabilities. It's probably a better word than that. But like if they were blind and they're deaf or whatever they might be, have you come into contact with other people like that when you've
I
been doing
have,
your
in fact,
investigations?
I'm involved in the production of a documentary right now, by one of your countrymen, David Cook,
Okay.
and Moe Shabin. She is
Okay.
a film producer and director and writer, and I'm involved in this documentary right now with them called Disabled Paranormal. The dis
Cool.
being in the parentheses and all that. And I'm involved with two other people. I'm involved with Christina Bowen, who is blind, and she does investigations with her service dog, and Adam Glider Bonnet, who he himself is a paraplegic and in a wheelchair. And they both are active investigators. They both speak at paracons and functions and stuff like that. And so David approached me about being in this documentary, and how can I say no?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like I want to be an advocate for people who do have disabilities and let them know it's like, hey, you don't have to sit back. You can be involved. You can do things. You can write articles. You can write books. You can be involved in groups in various different ways. And I think that that's really important for people to understand.
Yeah. So, Rachel, have you? I mean, I'm trying to think if I've come into contact with anyone with a physical disability while I've been doing investigating, and I think I have at times, mostly some people that have got a similar situation to Rick. Have you come into contact with people like that?
No, not really. A lot of the sort of ghost hunting expeditions I've been on, to be honest, they've not been brilliant, but I don't know whether that's the organisers or if it's just the spirits aren't very sort of into it when we get there. But no, I mean, I've obviously met people that call themselves sensitives, so they're able to pick up on more sort of energies and stuff like that. But no one with disabilities. But
No, I
it's
think
one of
that's
those
right. I
things
think
where
that's right.
I just never would have thought, because of the community that's built around ghost hunting and the paranormal. I find it crazy that people have, say, like, shunned you, Rick, if you think it might be because you're an amputee and that's why they don't want you on your team. I just think in this day and age, in 2025, it still blows my mind that people are still treated that way when there's just no need, because you can be involved. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have to be running around haunted houses running away from all the demons, but there's so much more other stuff you can do. I just find it
I think
such
they're
a
doing
strange
themselves a great
thing.
disadvantage if that's the case, because to have someone Rick Hale on your team would be
Mm,
a big, big tick as far as I was concerned. So,
yeah.
Thank
but
you.
yeah, so yeah. But as I said, there'll be other things coming with that as well, but you can't have everything. But so, Rick, you've
Yes.
recently you've not been doing as many investigations lately, just not because of any reason, but just you haven't. You said you did one recently, and I always want to hear about what people are doing currently. It sounds like you were telling me before you did a private investigation.
Yeah, it was, I'm not even really sure you can call it an investigation. It was more like we were bidding for the investigation. We went to a house. It was in Hebron, Illinois. Hebron is a town that is far northwestern in the state of Illinois. And so we get there. I'm with a group called Spire Paranormal right now. And so we were asked by the homeowner to come in and take a look and let them know whether or not we thought that their house was haunted. So, we arrived and, we went in and spoke with the homeowner. And we, of course, did checked with, EMF detectors, and we did, EVPs, worked with dowsing rods. I love working with dowsing rods. And while we were doing a dowsing rod session, the question was asked, do you want us to leave? And there's myself, there's Ed, there's another investigator and the homeowner there. None of us are talking. And all of a sudden we hear the voice of a man plainly say, no. I mean, and we also caught it as well on audio. And it'd been a long time since I'd experienced anything that I would call truly paranormal. And yeah, that was truly paranormal. We all heard it. I trust my ears. And so we were able to determine at the end of the investigation, or, if you want to call it that for lack of a better term, investigation, able to determine that there were two spirits living in this home, both older men. And they're friendly. There was nothing for the people living in this house to worry about. They just wanted to let them know that they were there. And I felt very comfortable in leaving the house that day, that no further investigation needed to be done. There was no house cleansing that needed to be done. No rescue medium that needed to be brought in to move these people into the light, as it were. But they could, the homeowner could very well peacefully coexist with the spirits in his home. And, we haven't heard anything since. So yeah, that was one of those ones that I could, be very comfortable with saying, yeah, that was a successful mini investigation.
Well, what do you think of that, Rachel? When given that most of the things we ever hear of people going in and having to clear houses or save the souls of the living.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking about that as you was talking. That it's, to me, if that was a televised ghost show, that would be amazing to watch, because you can go in there and you can say, yes, there are these spirits that are left over, but they're not evil. They're not causing any harm. We've caught this really good evidence. We can just sort of leave them be. And to me, that makes more of a reason for it to be something that you would share on YouTube or on TV,
Mhm.
as opposed to
A happy ending. It's a happy ending, you think. Well, you hope it's a happy ending, don't you?
It
as
is.
opposed to being like, oh no, actually it's a demon, we need to do all this stuff. Because then it just gets a bit like, okay, how many demons could there possibly be?
Well, see, and I think that's interesting that you say that, because out of the many investigations that I have done, and many of them have been in private homes, and I don't want to put a number on it because I don't want it to come off sounding like I'm full of it, But I would have to say a very, very small percentage of those have been something that was truly unfriendly. I mean, for the most part, you're dealing in, it depends on what you believe. If you believe that a ghost spirit apparition is the, consciousness of a human that has somehow survived the death of their body, you really are just dealing with people. I mean, sure, you have these homes where people are like, wow, whatever is in our house is really unfriendly. It's really mean. They just want us out. Well, that's because they still see that property as being theirs. And I have been very successful in the past with helping people to live with what it is that they have. But I just tell them, it's like, you have to be firm. You have to be assertive. You have to say, hey, look, we don't mind if you're still here, but you got to play nice.
Yeah.
You can't be mean. You can't be cruel. You can't pull mean tricks and make people think that you're dealing with something evil. It's like, we're willing to let you be a part of our family. Just be cool about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's right, that people can hopefully live in coexistence with whatever's there. Because I don't think that everything is evil, and if there was, you'd know about it, wouldn't you? Because you see enough tales of the horrors. Is there anything else, Rachel, you'd wanted to? I've known Rick for years, so I've asked him many questions over the years, and I've got his advice on lots of different things. But and as I said, he's written almost 250 articles about the spooky for Spooky Isles. Is there anything he's raised today that you'd like to ask him about?
Yeah, it's just about talking about ghost hunting shows and sort of how important you think it is for investigators to maybe try and debunk or rationalize their own findings, like as much as they can, not to the point of saying, oh, we've done this video, but we think it's all because of X, Y, and Z. But just off the ghost hunting shows that I've watched, where I appreciate where sometimes they'll go back over footage and go, well, it could be this, it could be that, we don't have an explanation. As opposed to, oh my God, look at all this paranormal activity. Go and deal with that after the video's over. Do you think it's a good idea to sort of debunk and rationalise your own findings after an investigation?
Yeah, I think so, and I'll give you a really good example of that. I was involved in a larger group about 10 years ago, and we did an investigation in this house that people were saying, we don't feel well. We're seeing weird things out of the corner of our eyes, and feeling very uncomfortable, feeling like there's a sense of presence. You turn around, there's nobody there, and while doing the investigation, we discovered that there were small amounts of carbon monoxide that was leaking into the home from a faulty furnace. Not enough to kill them, but enough to cause minor carbon monoxide poisoning. And this carbon monoxide poisoning was causing them to feel this paranoia or sense of presence, causing them to see things out of the corners of their eye, because small trace amounts of carbon monoxide will cause hallucinations, will cause headaches, will cause feelings of discomfort. And we told the guy, he's like, look, we found the origin of this. It's coming from your heater, rather from your furnace. And if you don't get this looked at immediately, you will become the thing that you fear is in your home. And sure enough, they had this, their furnace serviced, got it fixed, and everything that they were experiencing in their home, including the thinking that they're seeing things, had stopped.
Wow.
Because they had fixed the problem. And, sure, there's going to be things like high electromagnetic fields. Like I've been in homes before, especially older homes, where their electrical wiring isn't shielded properly, or it's old electrical wiring and it's putting out high amounts of EMF into the physical environment. And again, people are having that sense of presence, thinking that they're seeing things when they're really not, or they're getting headaches or feeling nauseous. Or people that live near places like train stations, or even airports, they're experiencing high amounts of noise pollution that is causing them to think that they're seeing things or experiencing things that they're not. And it's like, if you take care of these problems, you will not be experiencing these things anymore. Infrasound, that was what I was referring to. For whatever reason, the word escaped me. But with infrasound, that is, it's lower decibels that is coming in just underneath the 20 megahertz that the human ear is able to hear, but it's still able to affect you in very negative ways. And that's another one where it's like people are thinking that they're seeing dark shadows out of the corners of their eyes, because infrasound is actually, in studies have shown that it makes your eyeballs wobble inside your head. It can make them shake, and therefore you're thinking that you're seeing things out of the corners of your eye. And if you take care of these things, you will take care of the problem. However, there are situations, of course, where people are experiencing something that is truly supernatural, something that is truly paranormal. And then that's when people like myself or you, Rachel, or David, we're brought in to determine whether or not it is something that is truly paranormal. And, like I said, I've had many investigations where it's like I've been able to, to give evidence to people and say, here's what you have in your home. Do you want to get rid of it, or do you want to find a way to learn to live with it? And so it's like it's just after 34 years of investigating the paranormal, I've been very fortunate to come across real hauntings, but at the same time come across people who are, dealing with things that are causing these physical problems.
Yeah, I suppose that's the point, isn't it? It's an investigation. You're investigating what could be causing it, as opposed to sort of chasing the idea that it must be a ghost.
Right.
I think sometimes that's where maybe the ghost hunting shows get it wrong, that they've gone away from investigating what it could be, and it's not the end of the world if they find out that the thing at the cause isn't supernatural.
Disappointing. I mean,
Yeah.
we'd all like to think that we were speaking to the other side and all these kind of things, but it can't always be that.
No, true.
Exactly. And I do consider myself a believer. I really am. I've seen enough and experienced enough to know that this phenomenon does exist, that it is real. However, you can't, I think it was Charles Fort who said, don't be so closed-minded that you believe in nothing, but don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out. And I think that is advice or a quote that I would tell any person that is new to this. Don't believe everything that you hear. When I go into investigation, I neither believe nor disbelieve. I am there to hear what it is that you have to say and then go from there. I either find something in your house that is truly unexplained, or I find things in your home like, high EMFs or high infrasound or, carbon monoxide poisoning, God forbid. So it's like, I think that that's being truly subjective. You're going in as neither a believer nor a non-believer.
And just to finish off the conversation today, and thank you for Rick and thank you for Rachel. It doesn't matter whether you have two legs or one to come up with that kind of thought process, does it?
No,
you've been able to do that, and that's nothing stopped you, and it's nothing stopped anyone to be involved in these investigations, no matter what their physical limits or anything else could be. I can't think of what the words are, but yeah, and that's what's been interesting having a conversation with you today, Rick. It just means that everyone should get involved and everyone have a go.
Right, exactly. Everybody belongs. It's
belongs.
Male, female, LGBTQ, not LGBTQ, black, white, whatever. Everybody has a place. Everybody belongs in this, because this is phenomenon that affects us all.
Well, that being the case, I look forward to your next investigation with Zach Baggins, Rick.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
Yeah, all right, there you go. You see, there's some people that you see, we all cut down to the basis and find out who Rick doesn't want to be involved with. So anyway, thank you both for the conversation today. It's always wonderful to talk to you. We'll get you back, maybe Rick, and talk about some of the investigations you have done, maybe narrow down on some things and find out some more of your thoughts. So once again, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rick. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Rick Hale. And thank you, Dirty Sanchez, if you're still with us. See you next time
Yes.
on the Spooky Owls. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.